Hi, everyone. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Weather in 5 days and 5 minutes as we start off with the satellite loop at the midday hour. And while we're enjoying relatively nice weather here in the Northeast down into the mid-Atlantic states, you can also see the circulation that is spinning in the Gulf of Mexico. That's Tropical Storm Cristobal. It's not really very well organized. Yes, there is a obvious circulation center, but this storm is very broad, and the gales are actually well out to the east of the circulation center rather than being concentrated near the circulation center, which is more typical of more impressive tropical storms or tropical storms that are perhaps on their way to becoming hurricanes. I don't think we have to worry about that, but we will have to worry about the rain and gales along the Gulf Coast, where we do have tropical storm warnings up, and there will be some tidal flooding, and the rainfall amounts across the central Gulf states will be on the order probably of about 5 to 8 inches, and maybe some locally higher amounts, with the center making landfall sometime tomorrow evening. Meanwhile, in the Northeast, we're watching a cold front that is going to be moving through, and it will maybe trigger off a couple of scattered showers or thunderstorms this afternoon. Oddly enough, the Storm Prediction Center has a marginal risk of severe weather throughout coastal and into southern New England. Then it has a bit of a break over the central New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, Long Island, New York City, Philadelphia, all just in a risk for general thunderstorms. And then it's got another marginal risk, southern New Jersey down into southeastern Virginia, right along the North Carolina border. I'm a little surprised that they just didn't make it one rather long marginal risk and kind of split it in between, but that's what they do. So we'll respect what they're saying. And we also see a marginal risk, by the way, from southeastern Louisiana down into Florida, right around the coastal bend into central and south Florida. This is all due to the moisture that's involved with Tropical Storm Cristobal. And the big area today to look at is slight risk from Colorado on up through the northern plains, where we have an enhanced risk of severe weather in the Dakotas today. So fairly busy with regards to severe weather. The one in the east is not really too problematic, but still want to keep our eyes on the radar this afternoon. I think some of you may see a shower or thunderstorm, and many of you may not see much of anything. Just want to go back to Tropical Storm Cristobal, and we've got the reconnaissance aircraft there now, 993 pressure, and a center near about 23.5 degrees north and about 90.1 or so degrees west. But you have to go almost 90 miles to the east of the center, where the plane found in its flight up in that range. This is where you're seeing winds of 45 to 50 knots. But when you get near the center, you've got these white wind barbs, a really large area of winds under 10 knots, and then we extend it to the lighter blues. We're talking under 20 knots. So you have to go at least 30 or 40 miles to away from the center in order to start getting into some gale force winds, which you're seeing in the darker blue barbs that are showing up. So it's making another pass into the center from the northeast. And I think it's just going to pretty much hold its own from here on in. Maybe it'll tighten up a little bit in terms of the winds as we move forward. It's a fairly straightforward afternoon. Just want to give a look here with regards to there's a cold front here that is coming through for this afternoon. Behind it, some really nice dry air, and that's going to come in for Saturday night and Sunday. You can see the HRRR fires up some scattered thunderstorms. There's more activity, though, when you see them firing up across Maine and into eastern Massachusetts, down to Rhode Island, and maybe even clipping parts of Long Island here later today. And then it moves on out, and we get into that nice dry air during the day on Sunday. So it's a minor interruption. The weather at the moment is actually rather nice throughout much of this region. We really don't see too much yet on the radar, but I suspect that you are going to see a little bit of development going forward as we move into the evening hours. So let's widen out just a little bit. We'll take a look at the weather models for the next several days. Really don't see too much happening. This is the NAM model. I moved it ahead to Sunday morning. You see the tropical storm Cristobal in the Gulf of Mexico in the northeast and mid-Atlantic states. It's a nice, dry, cool high from eastern Canada that builds in, and it's going to be with us into the start of next week. In fact, we may have to wait until later in the week before any kind of cold front or shower threat comes along. Cristobal will move inland in coastal Louisiana, west of New Orleans, probably pass close to Lafayette, and then move northward up the Mississippi River Valley and actually maintain its identity as an extratropical storm moving into the western Great Lakes by the time we get to Tuesday night and Wednesday. But you can see it's still pretty dry here in the east. And jumping forward, I'll just use the GFS from overnight. The new one is just started. It's not really far enough out yet, but just looking at the model, the GFS from overnight, you can see the Cristobal well to the west. High pressure eventually moves off the coast and off the mid-Atlantic coast. We get into a southwest flow Wednesday into Thursday. An approaching front Thursday morning. Doesn't look like there's much to it, maybe a couple of showers. And then we wait for something stronger to come along, perhaps for Friday night and into next weekend. So we're in for some pretty nice weather here to start the week. The temperatures today, this afternoon, will be in the 80s. Some spots will get into the mid and upper 80s from northeast Virginia to southern New England. And then as we move on to tomorrow, most highs tomorrow and Monday with plenty of sunshine both days from northeast Virginia to southern New England, or if you'd rather, southern New England to northeast Virginia. Highs for both days will be mostly in the 70s, and then maybe we'll get back into the 80s a bit for Tuesday and Wednesday. So relatively uneventful, other than whatever thunderstorms pop up this afternoon. I expect them to be scattered in nature, not widespread, not a solid line of storms. Just keep your eye on the radar and into the sky if you're out doing things this afternoon outdoors. Joe and Joe Weather Show Sunday morning at 11 a.m. So be sure to tune in, and we'll see you tomorrow.